Welcome to Secret Story. Dear friends, thank you very much for watching. Leave comments, put likes, share with friends and subscribe to the channel. Gran Story, Staying with Gran. This is a new genre for me, so let me know how you feel about it and if I should continue. Don't forget to vote and comment. That is the only way that authors know what their readers like. We lived Brighton, a seaside town in the UK. The family consisted of my mum and dad and my 17 years old brother, Reg, and myself. I am Ian and I am 18 years old. We were a close-knit family, and this included my Aunt Fran and my Grandma Gwen, who lived in Findon, a smaller town about 8 to 10 miles from our place. This story begins and my brother Reg had gone boogie boarding one day and ended up in hospital with a broken leg and a broken ankle, and he was in traction. Naturally, he had to spend a couple of weeks in hospital. Mum and Dad thought it best to go and stay closer to the hospital so that they could see him each day and he wouldn't get too lonely. It was arranged for me to go to my grandma's house and stay with her and Aunt Fran for the duration. That was alright with me, as I wouldn't have to go to tech school for a couple of weeks. My aunt came and picked me up after school and took me to their house. She told me to get settled and then to come down for some afternoon tea with her and Grandma. After a couple of days, I was starting to get bored as none of my friends were around and there didn't seem to be anything for me to do. I decided to go for a bit of a hike around the small town and told the oldies that I would be away for a couple of hours or so. I then wandered round the town for about an hour and there didn't seem to be too much to see, so I wound my way home again. When I arrived home, there didn't seem to be anyone around, so I just went up to my room and thought I would have a nap. My aunt was a lady of about 40 years, but wasn't overly obese. She stood about 5 feet 4 inches, in stockings. My grandma was 61 and stood about 5 feet. I was on my way to my room and as I passed the door to my Gran's room, I heard a muffled sound. I wasn't sure what it was but thought I had better check that everything was alright with Gran. The door was slightly open, so I peeked in and what a sight I saw. There was my aunt and Gran on the bed. As soon as I had finished, I crept away and went to my own room. One night, I said goodnight to both Gran and my aunt and went up to bed. I was just coming out of the bathroom, which was down the hall from my room, and my Gran bumped into me. "I'm sorry, Gran," I said as I straightened up. "That's okay, Sonny." "Well, I better get to bed now, Gran, good night." Gran eased her way around me and let me proceed to my room. The door to my bedroom opened and Gran put her head around the door. "My goodness. Ian, what have you got there, baby?" "Oh, Gran, I'm sorry. I didn't mean for you to see me like this." "That's all right, Ian. Can I come in for a few minutes, baby?" "Okay, Gran," I said as I quickly covered myself up with the sheet. Gran came and sat on the side of the bed. "So, my boy, what have you been getting up to in the last few days, while you have been visiting us?" "Generally, just wandering around the town and reading in my room most of the time, Gran." Now, even though I was 18, I had not had much experience. "Oh baby, I miss your grandpa so much." "Well, Gran, anytime you like," I replied, and smiled at her. "For about 10 minutes. Now Gran, would you like that?" "Yes, my darling. But I want to give you something first, okay?" It was the most wonderful feeling in the world. But, I could not take too much of it, as I was more than ready. "I had better leave you and go to my own bed now. Sweet dreams. I love you." "I love you too, Gran." This is a continuation of Gran's story, the tale of a boy and his Gran. Thank you to all the people who read and commented and emailed me your personal comments. Let's hope this chapter is received in the same manner, and please don't forget to vote. This chapter is told by Ian and his Gran. A few months after my initial experience with my Gran, she asked me if I could come over and spend a couple of weeks to do some maintenance on the house for her. My Aunt Fran was going up to London for a few weeks to do some shopping and see a few shows, and Gran didn't like being in the house alone for all that time. College had finished for the year and I was very glad in more ways than one to help Gran. I arrived on Saturday morning and after having a cup of tea with Gran, asked her what she would like me to do first around the house. "Well, Ian, I know what I would like you to do first, but we had better leave that until later, okay, she joked. In the meantime, maybe you can check the gutters and the roof and make sure that there are no leaks, just in case it rains. I proceeded to do the things that she had asked of me, and it took most of the day. I put everything away in the shed and thought it was time to go and have a shower and freshen up. As I entered the back door, Gran was in the kitchen preparing dinner. I'm just going up for a shower, Gran, be down in about 10 minutes. Alright Ian, I will have a drink ready for you, I'm sure you can do with one. I had my shower and came back into the kitchen, and Gran had a beer sitting on the counter for me. Dinner should be ready in about 15 minutes, darling. I bet you're hungry. Very hungry, Gran, but not just for dinner, I replied, smiling down at her. You will just have to wait then, won't you? Later, when we had finished dinner and I had helped Gran with the dishes, she turned to me and kissed me lovingly on the mouth. I have been waiting so long to get you back here, darling. You don't know how much I have missed you. Oh yes I do, Gran, 'cause I have been longing to get back to you too. I would love to continue with the lessons you started to teach me the last time I was here. It will be so much better too, because Aunt Fran won't be here and we won't be disturbed. We sat and watched a movie together, feeling very comfortable with each other. After all, we had a whole 2 weeks. We made our way upstairs to each of our bedrooms. Gran said, meet me in my room in about 10 minutes, darling. I gave her 10 minutes and hurried along to her room just in my boxers. I loved this woman so much, even if she was my Gran and so many years older than me. Do you like it? Just a moment, Gran, let's take this easy. After all, I am going to be here for 2 weeks, so we will have plenty of time to do all the things we want to do. At last, I told Gran that I couldn't guarantee we lay there on the bed for a few moments. And fell asleep until the morning. As you can imagine, when we woke up, so we then decided to continue with our lessons. Which I will tell you about later. I will be continuing this story with another including Auntie Fran. So keep on reading and voting. Send me a personal email via this site and let me know what you think or make a public comment. I have been inundated with personal emails regarding the 2 Gran stories that I thought I would bring my aunt into the equation. There will be another Gran story coming up after this, so get yourselves ready to read. Don't forget to vote and comment. It excites me when I read you comments, both personal and public. This story takes place about 6 months later at my own home. My mom and dad had taken my brother on holidays and I had been left at home because I had started an apprenticeship and couldn't take the time off. My Aunt Fran had offered to keep a check on me as far as my eating habits and keep the house in reasonable order and would call over about every 3rd day. One day she had been doing the laundry and after serving up dinner for the 2 of us, went out to go home and found that the car wouldn't start. It was getting dark by then, so I suggested that she stay overnight. We rang Gran and asked if she would be all right on her own. She assured us that she would be and told us to have a nice night. I have mentioned in my previous stories that Aunt Fran is about 40 years old. She stood about 5 feet 4 inches in stockings. Although she had some extra flesh on her bones, she wasn't obese. We sat and watched the television together for a while, but the program was not at all interesting. Aunt Fran said that she was bored to death and didn't I have any good movie DVDs. I said I did have some, but they were not the usual movies, just what I watched when I was alone in the house. Aunt Fran dared me to get one out and let her see if she liked it or not. Fortunately, I did have one which was about a nephew and his aunt, so I put that one on. Most of mine were gran and grandson movies. We curled up on the lounge and for the first 10 minutes I watched my aunt as she started to squirm around on her seat. I knew where this was going to end up. It was something that I had been longing for. I had had a 6-month with Gran, since the time Aunt Fran had gone to London for a few days. As often as I could, I would ride my bike over to Gran's for another session. Funnily enough, quite often it was after everyone else had gone to bed. They only lived about 8 miles away, so it didn't take too long to get there for a fit young man. Do you know how long I have wanted to be alone with you? Ian. I have wanted you too, Auntie Fran. If both of us feel the same, why don't we go up? I don't think we need any more of the movie. Alright Ian, let's go. I followed my aunt into my parents' bedroom. Aunt Fran asked me to call her Fran when we were alone, as it sounded better. Fran turned to me. Fran did as I asked. I know that, Fran. I saw you with Gran the first time I stayed over there. That was when I knew I wanted. Oh, Ian, what a naughty boy you are. What a shame I didn't know before this. What? I said. Oh yes, I always knew when you were there. Mum told me not to try and see her if the door was closed. Maybe next time you come over, the three of us can get together. Enough talking, Fran. Oh Fran, I know now that I belong there and it should have happened a long time ago. Ian, don't worry about the past, let us just enjoy the present and think about the future. I don't know if I want to share you with Gran. If I keep seeing her, it will have to be separate from when I see you. We will talk about it later. 10 minutes passed. We then slept but woke again later that night and evening with Gran and Aunt Fran. This is a continuation of Ian and his Gran and their joining up with Aunt Fran. After my initial experience with my Aunt Fran, I was unsure if I wanted to continue the relationship with my Gran. I spoke to Fran about this and she thought that we could handle it. Fran was the love of my life. Even at age 19, I knew that I wanted to have her in my life as long as I could. We just seemed to fit together like two peas in a pod. One night, I cycled over to see Gran, not expecting to see Fran. I let myself in the front door and went upstairs to Gran's room. She wasn't really expecting me that night, so wasn't ready. That I got to her door and heard a noise. I peered in the door, which was ajar, and to my surprise, saw Fran. Although I had secretly known that they both got up to such things together, I had never witnessed it. That I stood at the door and just watched for about 10 minutes. I walked in the room. I walked over to the bed and tapped Gran on the shoulder. Gran. Oh, darling, I didn't know you were there. At this moment, Fran told everyone to stop talking and get down to business. That I then made my way to the bedside. It is my turn now. Who's first? Last we fell asleep but woke about an hour later. Gran was still sleeping. When we woke the next morning, Fran and I decided that we had better fill Gran in on our experience. We had breakfast and then sat in the lounge room with her. Gran, we want to tell you something very important, said Fran. Ian and I have had a previous relationship when I was over at his home a few weeks ago. We decided together that we were meant for each other. We don't want to leave you out. Ian knows that you and I have had a wonderful relationship for many years. He doesn't want to stop that. In fact, he wants to come and see us both, on different days. Maybe sometimes we can get together as we did last night. How do you feel about that, Mom? Gran broke down and cried. I took her in my arms and comforted her. I'm not sad, just very happy. I had a feeling that something had happened to Fran, and I am glad it was with you, not some stranger who would never have understood what Fran and I enjoy. Oh Gran, I love you both so much, but I feel that Fran is my soulmate and I need her in my life so much. I said that. A few days later I called over to see them both. They had come up with an idea. They were going to tell my parents that they were getting prowlers in the area and ask them if I could stay with them from now on. As it was closer to work, I was very happy and I couldn't see any objection from Mum and Dad. One less for them to worry about. So, a couple of weeks later, Dad ran me over to Gran's house with all my things. He told me to look after the ladies and left me there after saying hello to both of them. Well, as you can guess, I was kept as a very busy boy. I still saw Fran more than Gran, as she was the woman I was in love with. Gran always welcomed me with open arms whenever I went to see her, which was about twice a week. Even though I had my own room, I don't think I ever slept in the bed. I had two much more comfortable beds to sleep on. Unfortunately, Gran passed away about 5 years. But Fran stayed in the house and I decided to start living there. My relationship with Fran is still ongoing. We are still so much in love with each other after 15 years. We are still living in the same house, and I have told the parents that Fran shouldn't be left alone in that big house. Well, that's our excuse anyway. I am sorry if this is a bit shorter than usual, but it was just one of those things. I don't think I can add any more to this story. So I will now continue with one of the other stories. Enjoy reading this. Remember, it is a real experience between three people. Don't forget to vote, and if you want to email me, I will answer all emails except anonymous, which I can't. If you don't have anything constructive to say, don't bother saying anything. Copyright 2024, all rights reserved. No part of this story can be reproduced in any form or by any electronic or mechanical means without written permission from the author. All characters are fictitious, and any similarity to actual people, living or dead, events, or locales is entirely coincidental unless otherwise stated. Dear friends, thank you very much for watching. Leave comments, put likes, share with friends, and subscribe to the channel. Story 2, Welcome to Secret Story. Life was awful until I met Henry. I was failing most of my classes. My mom kept telling me I had to try harder in school, but I was no good at it. She said I needed to find a job and a place to live by graduation. We were poor and she couldn't support me anymore. I got fired from 5 part-time jobs by the time I was 18. I dated 6 different girls and 8 or 9 guys, but none of them wanted to marry me, or even live with me. I was lucky to get gonorrhea when I did. They gave me a shot and pills for it. Then I met my husband Henry on my way out of the clinic. I stood at the bus stop and he walked over near me. He was my grandfather's age, but generous and quite friendly. He offered me a ride so I wouldn't need to take the bus. We stopped for a nice lunch on the way. After some yummy burritos, I sucked him off while he drove me home. We went on 6 dates in only a week, then he gave me an engagement ring and an appointment for breast implants. My friends thought it was gross I married a guy over 3 times my age, but Henry was great to me. He wasn't hot or anything, but he was the first person I dated that cared about my feelings, if my family was okay, and if I got all the sex I wanted or not. It didn't hurt that he was rich, too. He didn't mind that I closed my eyes and imagined other people when we made love. He even took me to sex parties and let me have tons of fun with other men and women. I love Dick, but probably like women more than guys. They understand what other girls like. They're usually more caring and patient, too. I was very happy Henry adopted my little sister Claire when our mom passed away. Henry lets me smoke in the house. But Claire doesn't like the smell and stays in her room a lot. Her best friend Veronica's parents let her sleep over often, so we can have lots of swingers parties and orgies at home. When Claire's home, I usually visit the Jolsons for an hour or 2 before bed. They have an open marriage like we do, and only live 4 blocks down. Henry, I was disappointed the pain in my legs and other health issues prevented me from standing much or walking more than a dozen steps. My lack of sexual function was even more of a depressing letdown. Still, my voyeuristic side greatly enjoyed watching my lusty trophy wife in action. She'd dropped out of high school, and wasn't clever or coordinated enough to drive. She often nicked or burned her fingers when she tried to cook, and she left even more messes around the house than I did. Despite her deficiencies, she was a very kind and sweet girl who loved me. She was also great at providing them. If we're a sport, she'd win Olympic medals. She wouldn't mind if a stadium full of people watched either. I sadly considered what I would put in my will. I had many casual friends, a beautiful home, large investments and plump bank accounts, even a small private island. My sons followed in my footsteps, becoming plastic surgeons with a thriving private practice. I was equally proud of my daughter, who'd just been appointed an appeals court judge. I knew I'd lived a good life, no, actually a great one, but it was coming to an end. My prognosis was bleak, with my 3 potentially lethal health conditions. I knew I only had a couple of months left, possibly 4 with some luck. I needed to assure that my beauty and her younger sister would be well cared for after I was gone. Our personal chef Cornelius took 2 racks of ribs from the wood-fired smoker and carried them to the kitchen. Emma was lying supine on a backless sofa in the living room. We screwed after breakfast, but she was horny again by lunch. It was too much for an old man like me, but she'd be a dream wife for guys a third my age. My bachelor party involved sharing a very nice bottle of cognac with friends as we played cards. I was asleep by 10 o'clock. She was kind enough to record it on video and watched it with me on our honeymoon. The next evening, the second half of her party was a 5-man, 1 Emma gangbang. I was glad all the dark brown furniture in the living room was easy to clean. Our housekeeper Rosalie sighed and shook her head slowly, then cleaned the sofa for the third time of the day. I sat in my usual overstuffed wingback chair near the front door and greeted our new friends. "Hello, Ken. There are drinks at the bar and appetizers in the dining room. Make yourself at home. It's nice to see you again, Valerie. Welcome." She held a covered bowl in front of her and said, "I brought a dessert. Thanks for inviting us. We love barbecue." I replied, "As do we. Please, have a drink and meet everyone while the chef finishes things up. Copyright 2024, all rights reserved. No part of this story can be reproduced in any form or by any electronic or mechanical means without written permission from the author. All characters are fictitious, and any similarity to actual people, living or dead, events, or locales is entirely coincidental unless otherwise stated. Dear friends, thank you very much for watching. Leave comments, put likes, share with friends and subscribe to the channel. Story 3. As soon as we headed off along the path, I was aware of a couple catching us up. "Hello. Hi. I wanted to speak before. I was not sure if I should. Could you show me how to do that, please?" Turning around, I recognized the girl from the cubicle moments ago. Under good light, I could see she was absolutely beautiful. Tall with a gorgeous slim figure, clear skin, and long blonde hair. She reminded me of that perfect girl in college who everyone envied. Untouched by acne or spots, her face was a picture of innocence and loveliness. "I'm sorry to ambush you, but I don't know what else to do. I don't know how to do it like you." Nathan and I turned to face her. Nathan's mouth was open, she was that pretty. A few feet behind her stood her man. A mop of curly blonde hair topped an admittedly handsome young face. He was about the same height as her but looked embarrassed or shy. "How old are you?" Nathan voiced what I was thinking, almost 18. Our parents brought us away after our final exams, before university. "I'm Mary, this is my this is Peter." I guessed boyfriend was a loaded status. "I'm Joe, and this is Nathan." We all nodded hello to each other. Peter stayed back a foot or so. "You watched everything I was doing," I said, guessing she was talking about her appalling blowjob technique. "Yes, but I wanted to ask, but did not know if I should, in there." "What led you to even be in there?" Nathan asked, again voicing what I was thinking. Mary smiled. "Oh, we saw it on socials before we left. Highlights of the resort. We only arrived today, and we knew it was a place where we could be alone." "Yes, I try, and Peter says he enjoys it, but he does not, come. We have only been with each other. I don't have anyone I can ask. I definitely can't ask my mum. When you did it, he came quite fast, so I know he liked what you did more than when I tried. What's in it for me, for us?" I also didn't think Nathan would be too keen to just watch me showing her or to experience her learning. Behind her, Peter was looking at the ground. "I would let Nathan try if he is gentle. Peter won't mind if he has also done it." "Peter, how do you feel about it, mate?" Nathan asked. "I'm cool with it as long as we are honest with each other." "Where are you staying?" Peter said he would do anything Mary wanted. We found out Mary and Peter were a couple of hotels along from us, in a smaller boutique-type place. We also found they could not use their own hotel as their parents had room keys, and they were each sharing rooms with a parent. We talked about coming to our room, which seemed the logical and safest place. We told them we were going down to the late bar to watch the dancing. Peter didn't seem keen at all, but Mary was interested. I told them I'd taken part and that it was a lot of fun. I grabbed Peter's hand and led the way. Behind me, Nathan escorted Mary. We arrived while they were still getting volunteers up on stage. Nathan went to get 4 beers. Mary said she was a very good dancer and told us she had lessons. I stopped her from putting her hand up and said she might be better off watching once and seeing if it was her kind of dancing. I really hoped it would be, but I seriously doubted it was. We drank beer and got to know Mary and Peter a little more before the dancing started. I was pretty sure one of the girls was the same one I had danced with, definitely a plant. The dancers were a mix of ages and sizes, and over the next 3/4 of an hour, we watched them whittle down to the final three. Mary and Peter were totally focused on the stage. They had stopped talking to us. They became more drawn in as the dancing became raunchier. We were at the back of the crowd, and no one paid us any attention. I wanted to touch Mary too, but she was on the other side of him. I wished I had stood between them. We talked over breakfast and agreed we would see Mary and Peter. Nathan messaged Peter, something very bland, to meet up in the afternoon. He also said we would be around the pool. Our hotel pool was open to non-residents, so a good place to start. I was horny all day waiting to meet them. I didn't need a drink to find myself thinking very naughty things. Nathan and I agreed I would take Mary and Peter up to our room and show Mary what she wanted. Then Nathan should go with her and let her show him what she had learned. We didn't think all of us being in the room to start with would be a good idea. But we did want to make sure we got as much fun out of the arrangement as we could. We both half expected them to be a no-show, to chicken out. They arrived slightly early in shorts and t-shirts. We had reserved a group of loungers on the far side of the pool, away from too many ears. This side did not get the sun until mid-afternoon, which kept it empty for now. We told them what we proposed and they both seemed keen. I asked Mary if she had ever even asked Peter what he liked and they both shook their heads. We chatted and Nathan went and got a tray of coffee to share. Half an hour later, I led Mary and Peter through the lobby of the hotel and into the lifts. I opened the door to our room and was glad to see the maid had already been. I found out that Peter had never gone down on her, and that they had only recently started doing anything together. They both blamed their strict parents and quite a lonely upbringing. I asked if they were ready to learn and experience new things and they both nodded enthusiastically. I took hold of Mary's thumb and proceeded to imitate a wet a few seconds. Mary looked uncomfortable. Do you see what I mean? Did you feel what I was doing? I wanted her to feel what I was saying to do. I also said there was no point in starting on Peter until she knew what she was trying to do. And no point just watching me do it. She had already seen that the other night. I said, Mary tried my finger again. You've got to really want this. Has no one ever talked about this with you before, not even a friend? Melanie said the geography teacher paid her to suck him off on a school trip recently. And what did she tell you? I wondered what myths had been perpetuated. She said she did it for about 20 minutes, and then he came. She said it was like a whole load of thick fish soup had been dumped in her mouth. She said it was disgusting. No, well, I only touched it with the tip of my tongue the other night. Not really. Hold on, what have you tasted? Nothing really. I'd worried about not liking it or making me puke. This was going from bad to worse and I decided to push it and put her mind at rest in one go. I could see Peter staring at me. I'm going to try and show you a little of what you are trying to get. Why did you stop? Please don't stop. Okay, sit up again. Peter, after you come, how quickly are you ready to go again? The first time, pretty much straight away when I'm on my own. He grinned. It's time you started on the real thing. I guided her and every now and then would take over and show her small differences. Peter finally lay back again with his eyes closed, concentrating on the feelings. Okay, the best thing is to just swallow it. Mary hesitated a second or two and swallowed. She showed me her empty mouth. How was it? I asked. I can't believe it. It tastes sort of strange but not nasty. It is sort of thick but not. Thank you so much. I would never have been brave enough to do any of that. Peter started thanking me too. Seems like you two have learned a lot and had a great time. I guess it is time to repay the favor. They both looked at me eagerly. I urged Mary to go straight for it. She sped up and I could see she was really trying. I sat and enjoyed the view, proud of how quickly Mary had learned in the end. I looked at the bedside clock. We had been gone for nearly an hour and a half. Let's go and find Nathan. He will be wondering why we have been gone so long. Back downstairs we sat around in the sun for a while, Mary and Peter talking excitedly to each other. I had to warn them to keep the volume down as others might hear. I gave Nathan a rundown of what had gone on. Do you want to go and show Nathan what you learned? I'm sure he would enjoy it, I'm sure you will too. I pulled Nathan close and whispered to him that I think their first time really should be with each other, don't you? Nathan led Mary away around the pool. I handed Peter a bottle of sunscreen and asked him to do my back for me. I lay on my front and felt his nervous hands spread sunscreen on my back. I urged him to make sure my sides were done too. I also asked him to do my legs. I don't want to get burnt. I could feel myself getting turned on and knew other eyes would be watching this young lad. Eyes that would know he was not my husband. I offered to apply sunscreen for Peter and he seemed to reluctantly agree. 20 minutes later Nathan and Mary reappeared. Nathan gave me a thumbs up as he approached. Mary was smiling widely. You taught her well, really well. Nathan settled onto a sunbed. He tastes different than Peter, sort of stronger, but I liked it. Mary was excited like a kid at Christmas. Nathan, you should sunscreen Mary before she burns. Now the sun has come around. I held the bottle out toward him. No, I'm okay. I did not bring my swimming costume, just my t-shirt and shorts. We should get back to our hotel soon. Our parents will wonder if we missed dinner. Mary was all smiles as she spoke. Peter sat up and pulled on his shirt, and both thanked us. They got ready to leave. I hope we can see you later on. We have enjoyed today a lot. Something Nathan had never managed. Copyright 2024, all rights reserved. No part of this story can be reproduced in any form or by any electronic or mechanical means without written permission from the author. All characters are fictitious, and any similarity to actual people, living or dead, events, or locales is entirely coincidental unless otherwise stated. Dear friends, thank you very much for watching. Leave comments, put likes, share with friends and subscribe to the channel. Making me no better than the husband I had quietly grown to loathe over the past several months. As I hit send, a notification from the app and an email from our bank confirmed the transaction. I knew Alex would receive the same notification downstairs in his office. Likely questioning the transaction, he would see the memo and return to his writing or whatever in the hell he was doing in his office, knowing better than to bring up anything tennis-related after that morning's events. Received, read a push notification from Signal at the top of my phone. As I opened it, the stoic nature of Tommy's response confirmed the payment that I was overwhelmed with guilt and shame as I saw Tommy actively typing a message. Will tomorrow night at 9 p.m. work for you? He wrote, cold and calculated, almost like a machine. My life flashed before my eyes once again. Everything had happened so quickly. Amid my guilt and shame, it felt as if I had been under Gloria's spell, physically controlled by her puppet strings. I was like being on a roller coaster, and I could not escape until it came to a halt. I was already in too deep, and it was too late to turn back. My thumbs seemed to move independently, returning to my phone's keyboard. That works, I replied nervously, oblivious to or unconcerned about any prior Saturday evening family commitments I might have made. See you then. Get there at 8:45 if you can. The same spot you were at last night, he responded. Also, wear your home team outfit, he quickly followed. Will do, I responded, a sudden excitement washing over me. It now made sense why Gloria had worn our club-issued white tennis skirt last night. Tommy was very particular. I did it. 9 p.m. tomorrow night, I messaged Gloria. Yes. So proud of you, girlie. She responded exuberantly, her excitement radiating through the screen. I'm nervous, I replied. Don't be, girlie. In a couple of days, your biggest worry will be convincing your husband to get a second job to pay for your next 200 lessons, Gloria sent, followed by a crying laugh emoji, skillfully reminding me of the transactional nature of my new life. As we said our goodnights, I got off the bed and went into my closet to take off the tennis outfit I had nearly forgotten I was still wearing before returning to bed. Waking up the following day brought a whirlwind of feelings: guilt, shame, nervousness, fear, and excitement. The day got away from me quickly. Alex became scarce, visiting his mother most of the morning and afternoon while Emily hung around the house with a friend. I did my best to keep my mind off the impending evening by keeping busy with house chores. Before I knew it, 2 p.m. arrived, and I quickly dressed in my white tennis dress, lathering on my sunblock, and headed toward the tennis courts that I eventually made it to the club at 2:30 to warm up. I expected my experience at the court to feel different today, but it didn't. Tommy greeted us in the same manner, paying little to no attention to me as he always had, aside from a smile. Beth and I got beat, but we gave them a run for their money today. We shared a few drinks on the veranda, and before I knew it, I was back on the golf cart, turning down my street. Throughout the morning, I sensed that Jill and Beth knew about the evening's planned event but had seemingly been sworn to silence by Gloria, fearing they might give me cold feet. Pulling into the garage around 5 p.m., I took a minute to collect my thoughts before going into the house. A wave of nerves hit me as I suddenly acknowledged that my life would never be the same 4 hours from now. My heart pounded against my chest. Alex was gone, and so was Emily's car, as she had mentioned going shopping with a friend. Entering the laundry room from the garage, the open top of the washing machine reminded me that I still had to wash the white home tennis dress after showering. Heading downstairs just after 6 p.m., I tossed my skirt into the dryer. Just as I finished, Alex walked in through the garage and into the laundry room, startling me. "Hey, you scared me," I laughed. "Sorry," he said, as I started the dryer and headed back toward the kitchen. "What was the $300 Cash App transaction for?" he asked abruptly, barely 30 seconds after arriving home, as if it were the most pressing issue on his mind. "I signed up for tennis lessons." "Is that a problem?" I replied, my tone sharp. "No, just let me know next time," he replied with an edge of rudeness. "Okay, will do. I actually have a lesson tonight," I said, heading toward the living room. "Cool, have fun," he shot back, seemingly annoyed. As I walked away, with barely 3 hours left before meeting Tommy, I needed something to occupy my mind. I settled into the couch, grabbed the remote, and tuned into one of my junk shows, trying to push aside the anxiety of the evening ahead. Alex disappeared into his office again, leaving me alone with my thoughts. As the minutes ticked by, I lost track of time, and before I knew it, 6:30 had come and gone. Quickly followed by 7 o'clock, then 8 o'clock, all while I was engrossed in the latest episode of Bravo's Below Deck. Emily finally arrived home with her friend, plopping down on the couch beside me and excitedly recounting their shopping trip to the mall at Millenia, a staple of Orlando shopping. I did my best to pretend I was listening, but I was distracted, my mind fixated on the sudden rush I felt to get up and prepare for the evening ahead. "I need to get ready for my tennis lesson," I told Emily as I slid off the couch and stood up. "Saturday night lesson, huh? Look at you, Mom, all motivated." Emily teased with a grin. "I'm giving it my best shot. Tennis isn't as easy as it looks on TV," I said with a laugh, getting up and walking around the couch toward the laundry room. After retrieving my tennis dress from the dryer, I headed upstairs, feeling as though the minute hand on my watch was speeding up. In the bathroom, I paused to study my reflection in the mirror. "Have fun, girly," came a perfectly timed signal message from Gloria, accompanied by one last photo of Tommy. She knew the picture would push me through any remaining threshold of guilt, a visual reminder that my future of infidelity was worth it. "Thanks," I replied nervously, casting one last glance at Tommy before heading out of the bedroom and down the stairs. "See you guys later," I said to Emily and her friend as I walked past the couch toward the laundry room. "Bye, Mom," Emily replied as I entered the garage, the laundry room doors softly closing behind me in order to avoid reminding Alex of my departure. The white noise of the space, dominated by the hum of a bad ballast, heightened my nervousness as everything seemed to move in slow motion. Each detail felt exaggerated, from the faint echoes to the amplified sounds. I climbed into the golf cart, opened the garage door, turned the ignition, and flipped the switch to reverse. The unmistakable buzz of the cart in reverse resonated throughout the garage, even with the door open. As I backed out onto the street, I flipped the switch out of reverse and braced myself for the most intense 10-minute drive to the tennis courts I would ever experience. Fear and excitement nearly paralyzed me as I drove through the neighborhood, approaching an experience that promised both mental shame. The unexpectedly mild Florida evening brought a cooler-than-average breeze that whisked through the cart, brushing past my hair bun, which remained unaffected. While everything else had seemed to go in slow motion, the ride had not. Before I knew it, I was pulling into one of the golf cart parking spots outside the Tennis Pro shop, just as I had on every visit. Sitting idle in the golf cart, my mind raced. My life flashed before my eyes as guilt washed over me, thinking of Alex and Emily at home, assuming I had merely gone for a tennis lesson. It wasn't too late to turn back. I told myself. I could pretend this never happened and be back in my living room sitting on the couch with my daughter in 10 minutes, chalking up a missed lesson to a scheduling conflict. Though I might lose the friendship of the three ladies I had grown close to, never step foot on these tennis courts again without shame, and be $300 poorer, at least I'd still have my dignity and pride intact. At that point, I knew nothing short of a natural disaster could stop me from following through with that evening. While sitting in the golf cart, I pulled out my phone and navigated to losehistories.com one final time. Seeing Alex's profile marked as "online now" felt like a petty confirmation that somehow justified what I was about to do. With that small validation, I finally exited the golf cart and headed toward the veranda. It felt strange leaving my tennis bag behind, knowing it wouldn't be needed that evening. As I made my way up the steps toward the same table Gloria and I had occupied barely 24 hours ago, it was unsettling to realize that the next time I descended those steps, my life would never be the same. It was 8:40 as I approached the veranda table, 5 minutes before Tommy had told me to arrive and just 20 minutes before closing time. The brightly lit court stood empty, their usual energy replaced by an eerie stillness. Not a single person was in sight. Gloria and I had been in this exact spot 24 hours ago. And it was the same table I had shared with the ladies during this afternoon's practice. My heart pounded as I approached, the tension building with each step. It was the most nervous I had ever felt in my entire life. The white noise of the evening and desolate courts amplified my anticipation, making the air feel thick and heavy as I neared the table. "You're here late, Miss Amy," a familiar voice from behind said, startling me and reminding me I hadn't been alone. I turned to see George, the kind bar waiter in his early 70s, standing there. I had gotten to know him well over the past year. "Hey, George, you too," I said with a laugh. "Last call, can I get you anything before I head out?" "Mojito?" he asked. With a smile, already knowing my favorite drink. "Not tonight. I will take a huge glass of whatever white you've got," I replied, my laugh betraying my anxiety. "Coming right up, Miss Amy," George said, turning and heading toward the small bar cart set up expressly for serving the tennis area. I looked out at the empty courts, trying to distract myself by reminiscing about the close match Beth and I had played this afternoon, which unfortunately ended in defeat. Despite my efforts, a part of me still tried to convince myself that it wasn't too late to turn around and pretend this was all just a dream. "Here you go, Miss Amy, White Zinfandel," George said, jolting me from my daze as he set the brimming glass on the wooden table before me. "Thanks, George," I replied with a smile. "Need anything else before I head out?" he asked. "I'm good, thanks. Have a wonderful night, George." I smiled. As George disappeared, I was left alone once more on the deserted veranda. I glanced at my watch, now 8:45. My heartbeat quickened as I reached for the overfilled glass of wine, spilling some onto the rich teak table due to my jittery nerves. My lips seemed glued to the glass as I took a hurried sip. The anticipation of the squeaky pro shop door opening at any moment weighed heavily on my mind, making each second feel agonizing. Each minute seemed to stretch endlessly as 8:50 approached, my nervousness growing with every passing second. The white Zinfandel in my glass rapidly disappeared, my hand shaking uncontrollably as I lifted it to my lips. The passage of time felt almost tangible, each second weighing heavily with anticipation. By 8:54, the glass was nearly empty, and my anxiety was intense. My heart raced, and my hands trembled as I tried to steady myself, the dwindling wine mirroring the fleeting moments before my life as I knew it would change. As if it were intentionally coordinated, the squeak of the pro shop door opening, now a symbol of Tommy's presence in my world, perfectly coincided with the last drop of wine slipping down my throat. The timing felt almost deliberate, the sound slicing through the tense silence. I knew that turning around would change the fabric of my being forever. Run! The struggling angel on my shoulder screamed in a final, desperate plea to keep me whole. Setting my empty glass on the table, I took a deep breath and turned around to find Tommy approaching, just as he had the night before, clad in the same pair of tennis shorts. "Hey, Amy," he said, looking down with the same arrogant grin that seemed almost permanent these days. "Hey, Tommy," I replied nervously. "Are you ready?" he asked, jolting me back into reality and making my heart race even faster, subtly reminding me of the transactional nature of the evening. My life flashed before my eyes as I gazed up at Tommy's smirking face. The realization sinking in that $300 of my husband's hard-earned money was now sitting in his bank account, prepayment for the service he was about to provide to his neglected wife. I stood up abruptly, leaving my empty wine glass on the table. Tommy took the lead back toward the pro shop. He eventually opened the squeaky door and held it for me to pass through. Once inside the dimly lit shop, now lacking its usual brightness, the door closed behind us. Despite having spent a considerable amount of time there, checking in, renting a ball machine, or browsing the merchandise, I had yet to learn what lay beyond the walls of the main area. "This way," he said, guiding me toward the short hallway to the left of the counter. Trailing closely behind, I couldn't help but wonder where he was leading me. The idea of an assistant tennis pro having their own office seemed unlikely. Was this destination an office, or were we heading toward a broom closet instead? The specifics of the lessons and their locations had never been clarified. The ladies had never discussed the overall logistics of where the lessons took place. As we passed the professionally nameplated doors of each tennis staff office, I suppressed a chuckle when we stopped at the last door at the end of the hallway on the right. The brief laugh momentarily eased my nervousness, even if just for a moment. The handwritten yellow post-it on the door read simply, "Tommy." I could barely suppress my laughter. It was a stark reminder of Tommy's overall insignificance at the club, suggesting he had landed the job through connections rather than merit. As he opened the door, my earlier suspicion that we were heading to a broom closet proved accurate. The room wasn't an actual broom closet per se, but a cramped 5 by 5 foot space with a musty odor, likely from his comings and goings all day in and out of the hot Florida sun. Inside was a tiny standing desk with a laptop, a beige fabric chair with metal arms, and worn carpet that had seen better days. The chair looked incredibly ratty, its beige fabric was stained and threadbare, and it was even too shabby for a college dorm. The walls featured only a clock and what looked to be a tennis certificate, indicating the room had been repurposed from a storage space to give Tommy a semblance of an office. The stark, confined environment felt almost pitiful. I couldn't help but feel a wave of sympathy for the man I had just paid $300, realizing how meager his workspace was compared to the expectations I had built up in my mind. Stepping into what Tommy called his office, I couldn't help but notice the stark contrast to the other offices with their standard 6-panel doors. This one had a cheap, hollow-core door, signifying the forgettable room it had been before being assigned to him. My fleeting amusement at Tommy's lowly setup quickly faded as the door slammed shut behind me. And he turned to face me. Tommy, a man of few words, had so far uttered only 7 words to me that evening, including his brief introduction on the veranda. I checked the clock, which read precisely 9 p.m., as he approached with the precision of someone clocking in for a shift. What was happening to me? I glanced at the clock, which read 10:01, a stark reminder that my husband's $300 had bought me precisely 1 hour with the assistant tennis pro. Though not rude, he displayed a clear, "our business is done here" attitude as he opened the cheap hollow-core door and led the way out of the room, down the hallway, and into the main tennis shop. "See you at practice this week," he said, opening the pro shop door. The loud squeak would forever remind me of him moving forward. "Bye, Tommy," I said, standing outside the door to collect my thoughts. I glanced back at the table, stark against the dim, empty tennis courts where the lights had been turned off. The empty wine glass, still sitting there, seemed to echo the emptiness within me. My legs, weak and trembling. As I reached the golf cart, I plopped down in the seat, catching my breath and gathering my thoughts before backing out, the loud buzz echoing into the night. The ride home through the quiet, streetlight-lit roads of the neighborhood felt endless. My phone began to vibrate intermittently along the way, the unique tone of signal indicating it was from the ladies. Ironically, Tommy had unknowingly turned me into the living embodiment of the fictitious women Alex had written about, with him playing the role of the man my husband was likely currently writing about. As I turned down my street, arriving home and pulling into the garage, I took a moment to sit in the golf cart and scroll through congratulatory messages from the ladies, welcoming me to their exclusive club as if I had just won a prize. Despite the overwhelming guilt of having outdone Alex's wrongdoings exponentially within the span of an hour, the realization that a mere 5-minute golf cart ride had already diminished that guilt struck me hard. I understood there was no turning back. And my life would never be the same. While my priority should have been sneaking into the house, my mind kept returning to Gloria's comment about Alex needing to find a new job to cover what would likely become weekly lessons from this point forward. Now, both Alex and I lived secret lives, his known to me, but mine hidden from him. This knowledge gave me a potent advantage that I would likely continue to use to fuel my own actions moving forward. Copyright 2024, all rights reserved. No part of this story can be reproduced in any form or by any electronic or mechanical means without written permission from the author. All characters are fictitious, and any similarity to actual people, living or dead, events, or locales is entirely coincidental unless otherwise stated. Dear friends, thank you very much for watching. Leave comments, put likes, share with friends and subscribe to the channel.